All right, so can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Can anybody not hear me? Okay, so I don't know, maybe we'll go back and forth. So I just found out that they've got Diet Ale8s back there.
Yes.
Yeah, I walked back, I kept feeling like some weirdo. I'd walk in there, I'd look around, and I'd walk out until finally I was like, man, I was looking for Diet, and they're like, oh yeah, they're in that cooler. And as you can tell, I'm not from around here, by the way I hold my bottle, right? It's like that, right? Anyways, how's everybody doing? Good. So as you mentioned, my name is Robert Purdy. I'm a trooper with the State Police. Show of hands, if you were here last time, raise your hand so I can see. All right, so why weren't y'all, everybody else at the last one? I'm just kidding. Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. We've got a little bit of time together to talk about social media and some of the pitfalls that are in there. And so let me start out by saying this. Man, I think that social media can be a great tool and a great thing. But unfortunately, if it's used inappropriately and incorrectly, man, it can ruin lives. And so if you don't hear anything else that I say the rest of the night, hear that. So it kind of just set the stage because a lot of times, man, things have changed. Would you agree over the last 10, 15, 20 years? Okay, so here's what I want you to do. If you have a phone with you, pull your cell phone out, okay? I know it's kind of weird. This isn't like normal school, right? I want you to pull your phone out if you brought it in here with you. And then I want you to, let's get everybody, get them out. And then I want you to raise them up high. Okay. All right, so let me see how many cell phones I actually see. I see one cell phone here. Maybe two. Right, the rest of y'all have computers. You have two computers, right? Y'all don't have cell phones. You have a computer. All right, so keep that in mind. This is a cell phone. What you've got is a iPhone or an Android. You've got a computer. Who grew up, show of hands, who grew up with a computer in your house? So if you were 10 and under, whenever your family got your first computer, where are you at? Raise your hand. Oh, so yeah, so just a handful, right? So a lot of times, man, we end up getting into computers, technology later on. And so with that being said, oftentimes as parents, we are treading in waters that we don't know. With our children and the devices that they end up having. And so just to kind of set the stage for some of the things we're going to talk about, I've got a little video. And if you've got a daughter that has a phone, you may all too well know this. Take a look.
Selfie time. Bottom four at Chase Field. D-backs drill the Rockies 1-0. And while they're, maybe they'll tweet us their fan photo, BB. Now's the time, fans. Get on the Twitter with a hashtag of the whole thing, AZDataStrongFan, and you might see your fan photo at a Diamondback TV broadcast brought to you by T-Mobile. I mean, look at the one on the right.
Do you have to make faces when you take selfies?
Wait, one more now.
Oh, there you go.
Better angle. Oh, check it. Did that come out okay?
That's the best one of the 300 pictures I've taken of myself today.
Every girl in the picture is locked into her phone.
Oh,
every single one is dialed in. Welcome to parenting in 2015. They're all just completely transfixed by the technology. David Peralta. Oh, hold on. I'd take a selfie with the hot dog. Selfie with the churro. Selfie just of a selfie.
I can't even get my phone to take pictures.
Took a picture of your thumb last week. That was good.
Here's my first bite of the churro. Here's my second bite of the churro.
You know, the beauty of baseball is you can sit next to your neighbor and have a conversation, or you can just completely ignore them. Peralta knocks it into center. David tonight 2 for 2, a leadoff single here in the fourth, and nobody noticed.
Yeah, right. I don't know what it is. 5 minutes of baseball we just got to watch. No, but all too often, like our lives revolve around our phone. In fact, studies show that we even get a dopamine release whenever we start getting on our social media and we find, hey, somebody liked my picture. Okay, it's the same kind of thing. In fact, they say that a lot of people are even addicted to their phones, and the addiction that ends up showing up in their brain is much like that of someone that has a substance abuse addiction. So just to start painting the picture, man, I don't go anywhere without my phone. I'm gonna go deer hunting this weekend, and I guarantee I will probably have my phone at some point, like scrolling through my feed, taking the pictures of the sunrise, whatever there is. It is always, always there. Now, how about this? Anybody have any children that you have taught how to drive? Raise your hand. All right, so about half the room. Okay, so I'm gonna ask some of you all some questions. Can I ask you a question? Okay, since you have two phones, you're probably gonna be good at this. How long ago was this that you taught somebody how to drive?
My oldest daughter's 26, so
10 years ago. Did you just throw them the keys one day and say, "Hey, good luck"?
I did not.
What did you do?
Well, took her out, modeled for her, then started in a church parking lot where there were no people, when church wasn't in session. Just made sure she knew the rules of the road and those types of things.
Why?
Because I want her to be safe.
Yeah, you want her to be safe and everybody else to be safe. You see, whenever someone starts driving, and they grab onto the wheel, man, they feel that, man, I've got the world at my fingertips, right? And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with driving and a lot of bad things that can end up coming as a result of somebody getting behind the wheel. I mean, trust me, I know all too well. I have been there and seen it far, far, far too many times. But here's the question. You see, whenever we get somebody a cell phone or an iPhone, oftentimes it just gets handed over, like handing over the keys to a car without ever having the kind of training that somebody needs. And so it's dangerous because at this very moment, this child, man, the world is at their fingertips. The things that they can do and the things that they can say can take them to places that they don't need to go, that they shouldn't go, and oftentimes can keep them for far too long. And so it's this dangerous, dangerous world whenever it comes to social media and technology. What ends up happening in an internet minute? This is last year. This is what they ended up saying goes on every single minute. We've got 900,000 logins on Facebook, 16 million text messages sent, 4.1 million videos viewed. Okay, that's every single minute. 452,000 tweets sent. And a few of those are mine. I'm not going to lie. I do a lot of things on Twitter. Tinder, which I'm not. 1.8 million snaps. So a ton of things are going on every single second. And a lot of times these things can have real world and horrible consequences if someone isn't taking control of the decisions they're making. So to set the stage for a lot of the things we're going to talk about, I've got this video because at the end of the day, you can be anybody online, which is a great thing, or it's a dangerous thing. Take a look. Man, it's crazy the world that we end up living in. And unfortunately, that's how it is. I mean, can anybody else relate here besides me? Okay, cool. I'll just raise my only hand, all right? Like last night, I decided, I was like, man, I need to go for a run. I went for a run. And what did I do before I took my run? Took my picture, and then I was running. I was like, man, it's really pretty sky. And I take a picture of that. Did I get done running? I was like, beautiful run under some gorgeous skies. Send. And why? I don't know, okay? But all of us, a lot of times, man, we revolve around social media. So just to give you a couple statistics, let's talk about gaming. So whenever we look at internet gaming, maybe it's Xbox, things like that, they say that the average teenage boy spends an average teenage boy spends 6 hours a day gaming. All right, 6 hours, right? Do you think it's addictive? Yeah, absolutely. And then some of the other things that we end up seeing is even anxiety, man, is off the charts when we start looking at our teenage population. A lot of times it's because everybody puts what? Their best life on social media. And we end up playing that comparison game. We go, man, mine sucks compared to that. But you never know what somebody else is going through, and it's very, very hard. And something that we've got to work through. So I'm going to go kind of back and forth on a number of different kind of things. Some of this information that I have in here is information that I give to students because I think that at the end of the day, if we can all understand what does proper internet behavior look like, I can benefit, you can benefit, and our kids can benefit. The other thing that I'm going to tell you, I was at an event recently, and Judge Neal, Irway Neal, was speaking. And he was talking to a group, and here's what he said, and it stuck with me. He said, if you're a parent and you're not snooping, you're a bad parent. And I was like, holy cow, right? I'm going to use that, but I'm going to at least attribute it to him. If you're a parent and you're not snooping, you are a bad parent. I thought, man, that's really strong. But at the end of the day, that is. You see, there's a lot of kind of inappropriate content that we shouldn't necessarily be putting online and that our kids shouldn't be putting online. A lot of times there's a lot of unintended consequences that come as a result of putting things out there. And we don't necessarily know until it's far too late. I think we go back to last year, there was a quarterback that was projected to be in the first round of the NFL draft that the day before he was drafted, it came out and someone pulled out something that he said in high school that had derogatory remarks. And what happened to him before the draft? He tanked. You see, saying one thing, even if nobody else ends up seeing it, somebody may get a hold of it later on. Some of those things, drinking and drug use, hate speech, lewd or offensive gestures, profanity, revealing or suggestive images, or threats. And so whenever I talk to kids, I'm like, listen, if it falls into any one of these categories, don't do it. Because once you put something online, how long is it out there? Forever. Unless you put it on Snapchat and then it's what? It's forever, yeah. Trick question. It doesn't just get deleted. It is out there forever, and it is out there for anybody to see. Anything that I say online, all someone has to do is see it, take a screenshot of it, I delete it, they still have it, and then it gets thrown out as far as Trooper Purdy said this, and this is what he thinks. And it could cost me a lot of issues. It could cost me my job. It could land me in jail. A lot of times, you see, I do a lot of tweeting and social media on behalf of the state police. And so I ask myself these questions. Like before I tweet, I say, do I like what this says about my agency? Do I like what this says about me? Do I like what this says about others? And if any of those answers is no, then I just don't post it. And so if we would just run every single thing that we put through on social media through this little test, man, we can make great decisions. Like, who might I hurt? Do I like what this says about me? How could this impact my future? Could this get me into trouble? Would the adults in my life think that this is appropriate? And if we would just simply stick with that, man, we can make great decisions. And so a lot of these slides, there's some information. So before I forget, before you leave, you're more than welcome to grab one of these Internet Safety Toolkit that has some great resources for parents and guardians. And in there, it's going to talk about NetSmarts. You can go to NetSmarts and get a number of great pieces of information to use and share and to educate yourself. How could this impact my future? So let's talk about unintended consequences really quick. Whenever I say unintended consequences, what's that mean? Didn't mean for it to happen. As you remember, anybody a UK football fan in here? Okay, who jumped? Yeah, now we are. That's what I was going to ask. Like, who jumped on the bandwagon this year? As you remember, there was a UK football game where they played Murray State University. And I got done. I was at the game. I was leaving the game, and I went out to Cooper Drive, and I was going to turn right because that's the way that I always come home. And there was a police officer that had traffic stops and said, "Hey, you can't go that way." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because a kid was hit by a car, and we're investigating this collision." Right? And so that's the end of the story. And so I use this story whenever I talk to students, and you can use this as well. And so basically what ended up happening is there was a fraternity that was going to have an unregistered tailgate party at the stadium or on campus. And had they not had this story or not had the party, the rest of the story would be null and void. But they had the party. And people started showing up, and they decided they were going to start serving alcohol. They started serving alcohol. They had not had alcohol at this party, then the rest of the story would be null and void. But they didn't. So they had some minors show up. One of those was an 18-year-old boy that started drinking. The boy got out, got into his car, drove off, and went home. Had he not gotten in his car, had he not drank, had he not started his car, the rest of the story would be null and void. But there's a family that's living the rest of their life without their 4-year-old little boy, right? And a lot of times we make decisions every single day without understanding the long-term consequences of it. Right? Like, and if we can just ask ourselves, how could this impact our future? A lot of times we don't see those direct results. Online information can spread quickly into a lot of people, reach people that you don't want to, and be what? And be permanent. And that's something as you talk to your children, as you talk to your teens, man, that is something to keep in mind, because once they put it out there, it's out there for good.
What's up, guys? I'm Kobe Person. How easy is it for a pedophile to pick up an underage child using social media? Well, today we're gonna find that out. I made a fake profile on Facebook posing as a 15-year-old boy. With the parents' permission, I friend requested 3 girls ages 14, 13, and 12 years old. I've been talking to these girls for the last 3 or 4 days, and today we're supposed to meet up. What we found in this video is shocking and something everyone should see. Be sure to watch until the end and use what we've learned in this video to better educate your friends and family. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. This first girl, her name is Michaela. She's 13 years old. We've been talking on Facebook for the last couple of days, and we're supposed to meet up at the park later when her parents leave the house. I'm just waiting right now to get the text that her parents have left the house. So I just got a text. My parents just left. I can be at the park in 10 minutes. We're gonna go see if she comes in 10 minutes. We're gonna go right now, set up all the cameras, and just be waiting there for her. So she said she's gonna meet me at the park playground. So this is the closest to her house, she said. So right now I'm texting her that I just got here. All right, we'll just wait, see what she says. She said, okay, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Oh, she's coming, yep. Michaela?
Who are you?
From Facebook. You remember?
Michaela, are you crazy? Are you out of your mind?
Sorry.
He could have been a rapist. He could have been a pedophile. Why would you do this?
Sorry.
Yeah, you know that I could have been anyone. Like you talked to me for the last 4 days. You've been talking to me on Facebook. Do you know that? Like, you shouldn't talk to strangers, especially online. Like, I wasn't even do I look the same as my picture? It could be even worse than that.
You realize how scary this could have been? Man, we have to talk.
This next girl, her name is Juliana. She's 12 years old, and we're supposed to meet up tonight when her father falls asleep. So right now I'm here with John, who's Juliana's father. We're gonna see if she's actually gonna come to the door or not. She said, this was the last text, LOL, I would have to wait till my dad falls asleep if you want to chill, because I can't have boys over. So she wants to chill tonight, supposedly. What do you think about that?
I don't think she's gonna open the door. Gotta hope she doesn't open that door.
What's your address?
I pray she does not respond to this.
Well, I can't say the address, but she just literally just texted the address. Start driving to the address close by. My dad's going to drop me off. All right, so she just said, I think my dad fell asleep, you can come now. One with the light right here?
Yes.
outside. Come to the front door. Are you ready? Some chill.
Juliana, get over here. Get over here. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
I'm sorry.
How can you do this? You're 12 years old. This guy's 20 years old. You could have been raped and murdered. We already lost your mother. What would I do if anything happened to you? What would I do if anything happened to you? I love
Man,
you.
you talk about scary.
Don't you ever do this again.
You see, here's the deal. Oftentimes, our teens and our kids, man, they are so trusting. You see, recently I was speaking at a class. I was talking in elementary school, and I talked about how you can someone can create fake profiles. And in fact, a lot of times the state police, before we go into a school to go do a presentation, you know what they do? They have a fake profile and they start friending people inside of the school. And once you friend one person, oftentimes you can get your way in, because people will look and they'll say, hey, Johnny just sent me a friend request. Let me see if we have any friends in common. And they look and Hannah is friends in common. And so they're like, well, if Hannah knows him, I should know him, right? And so they can work their way right in that easy. And kids, man, oftentimes they believe exactly everything they hear online, because that is the world that they grew up in. I mean, back in the day, maybe you met somebody and you were trusting as a child, but you had to have that face-to-face connection. And this is what they know. And so if they see the picture, oftentimes, man, they'll fall for it every single time. And it's dangerous. It's a dangerous, dangerous world. And if you're not there to look and to watch and to monitor, man, it's scary stuff. A lot of times whenever I talk to students, I'll be talking to elementary school. Now, I mean, middle school and high school, everybody has social media, but I talk to elementary school students just about, hey, here's how you can be safe whenever it comes to online safety, different people that you end up meeting. And so I just ask them beforehand. I mean, all of us pretty much have a digital footprint, a digital online citizenship. So I say, hey, who has an iPhone or an iPad? And the number of hands that go up, man, it's staggering. In fact, I was here earlier and I was talking to one of the young ladies that are sitting over here. I'm not going to call her out, but she said, all of my friends have what? Okay, I'm not going to call her out, but she's going to say, all of my friends have phones except for who? Right. No, they have a computer, right, except for her. She's like, man, I need one. And that's the world that we end up living in. I'm talking to elementary students, and they're like pulling out their phone and like looking at their feeds while I'm talking, right? I mean, that's the world that we're in. And so at the end of the day, I say, well, who has Facebook? Now, how many kids end up having Facebook now? Some, right? Now, not many. Why not? Why not Facebook? It's for the old people, yeah. And so if you're on Facebook, man, they're not on Facebook. Or if they do, they are employed at the Krusty Krab, right? And that's where it is. I'm serious. If you start looking, am I lying? If I'm lying, I'm dying, okay? And so that's where they're employed, or they go to school. They start putting things out there. What about Instagram? Think they're on Instagram?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And so like half the kids are on Instagram. I'm like, who's on Snapchat? And half the kids are like, I'm on Snapchat. I'm like, who's on TikTok, which used to be Musical.ly, and a bunch of kids are on TikTok. You see, that's the world that we end up growing up in. Now, most of those social media sites, how old do you have to be to get online?
18.
Not 18.
16.
Not 16. How old? Most of them are 13 years old. The majority of them are 13 years old. So here's the problem. I'm talking to elementary students. I'm talking to an 8-year-old, all right, that gets online and says, hey, here's my birthday, but I'm 13 years old, all right. Fast forward 5 years, they're now 13 years old, but online, how old are they? They're 18, and a lot of the protections that are online no longer apply to them because now they're an adult. And so I tell them every single time, listen, if you lied about your age, which you did, you need to go back and continue to keep changing it to get it back to the right age as you start getting older. But a lot of times what ends up happening is they don't want to, because if they're on Twitter and if they put in a fake birth date and then they go to change it later on, what ends up happening? Twitter shuts their account down and now they got to start over, okay? And so there's a lot of dangers that come from it. So, for those of you that got here early, you all saw something in front of you, and basically we're going to talk about some social media platforms, and y'all are like, man, what? We've got a test? And so a lot of times, man, there are social media platforms that you've never heard of, that I've never heard of, and so everything that I say today, you cannot put it in a box as far as this app is bad. All right, so I want you to get that. I'm not going to leave here today and say, hey, Snapchat is bad. Hey, Musical.ly or TikTok is bad. That's not what you're going to get from me. We're going to talk about responsible usage and what you as a parent need to be looking for and paying attention to. And so chances are you saw this test in front of you and you started filling it out, or some of you cheated and you started going through like the App Store and looking up stuff. But just kind of show of hands, I just want to see what you may or may not know. So who knew? If you knew at least one of them, I want you to raise your hand, at least one of them. Okay, so now we're going to do one of those things. Anybody ever go to a wedding and they're like, if you've been married today, raise your hand, right? And then like as of like yesterday, then the newlyweds sit down, right? And we get to like somebody that's been on the dance floor for like 65 years, okay? And so if you know at least one of these, raise your hand. Okay, if you know at least two of them, keep your hands up. If you know at least three of them, keep your hands up. If you know at least four of them, keep your hands up. Over here, y'all are like, I don't even know what I'm talking about. At least five of them, keep your hands up. Wow, check that out. At least six, at least seven. Who had to cheat to know this many? At least 8, at least 9, 10, 11. You know at least 11 of them? Okay, so there's a bunch. So let's work through some of these, okay? What is the top? What is the first one? Bing. It's Bebo, not Bing. All right. Y'all like, doggone it, that took away one of my things. That's a search engine, not the app, okay? So Bebo is, and before you leave, I also have these that are printed out that have all the answers on them. So if you didn't get a test earlier, you can get one. It's a social networking website launched in 2005. Users receive a personal profile page where they can post blogs, photographs, music, video, questionnaires, and such, is where other people can answer. What about the second one down? What's that one? Anybody have the second one down? That one's Chat Roulette. What do you mean, oh? Have you ever heard of it? Okay, what have you heard about it? Okay, so here's the deal. It's an online chat website that pairs strangers from around the world together for webcam-based conversations, okay? And you don't know, it's like spinning a wheel. It's like Russian roulette, okay? And so you spin the wheel and you're put into a chat room with somebody else that you've never ever met, and there's absolutely no way of really seeing who they are. It's completely anonymous. Now, law enforcement has a way to track it down. We can record the date and the time and which chat room we were in, and we can start tracking people down. So here's the deal. Recently, I was at a training. I was at a conference in Louisville, and there's a detective that works on our electronic crimes. Jeremy Merle. Anybody know Jeremy Merle? He's a captain with us. He's from around here. And so he's up there talking, and he goes to chat roulette, and he logs in, and he gets put in the room with somebody. And the person automatically is like ASL, right, or name. And so like she gives a name, and it's like ASL. Anybody know what ASL stands for? Age, sex, location. Okay, so this person on the other end of the line that he doesn't know who it is, and he's pretending to be 15 or 14. He goes, 14, female F / PKY, Paris KY. And then she says, you, and the guy's like, holy cow. And he's like, what? And he's like, 44, male from Louisville. And so now we're at Paris and we're in Louisville, and the detective's like, this never happens. I never get introduced to people within this close, right? And so he was like, oh man, I shouldn't be talking to a 14-year-old. And so the detective says, I don't mind. And said send, right? And so he's like, okay. And we're like, oh man, this is getting bad. In fact, the detective thought it was going downhill so quick. He pulled his jacket off, all right? He took his cell phone out of his pocket, he set it on the thing, and he's sweating as he's typing this, right? Pretending to be this 14-year-old little girl. And so finally, partway through it, he said, man, I was just waiting. I thought I was going to have to shut it down, that he was going to send something. But a lot of times what kids will do, or what people will do, is they'll get into that chat room, and then they'll try to take them from that over to a messaging app. And so it could be Instagram, it could be Facebook, it could be TikTok, it could be Kick Messenger. They'll try to move them someplace. That way they can continue to talk with them, because as soon as they close out, they're not going to know who is on the other end. And so finally, the detective was like, "Do you do you normally talk to undercover police officers?" And the guy was like, "LOL, no." And he said, "You are today." And then like crickets. And then on the other phone, on the other line, he said, "I didn't do anything wrong." He said, "I know, I'm just using this for an example. You're in front of like 400 people at a conference." And he was like, "Oh, all right." And so he's like, "We're in Louisville. You want to meet up?" And the guy's like, "No." But anyways, number 3 is draw something. So it's like an online version of Pictionary. Nothing wrong with that. But what does it have? You see, a lot of times, even on these draw something, it has a messaging capability where they can connect to different kind of people. And so that's why I'm saying any kind of online app that is any kind of online game, the opportunity for someone to take your child to that and then start communicating directly with them, it happens. It's not just on Snapchat. The fourth one down, I'll at least let you get this one. What's the fourth one down? Facebook. And then we've got FaceTime, and then Flickr. Yeah, Google Hangouts. Meet Me. Meet Me is a social networking service. It's quite a ways down. It says Meet Me. Founded in 2005, it provides the opportunity to interact with new people. Even MySpace is still on there. We got to change that. Is MySpace still around? Huh? Yeah. All right, let me see if there's any other ones that are crazy. Okay, so in Omegle, it looks like it's the top one on the second page. It's an online platform for people to create their own, it's a free online chat website that allows users to communicate with strangers without registering. The service randomly pairs users in one-on-one chat sessions where they can chat anonymously using the handles you and stranger. Okay, and so there's a number of different kind of things. And so you're more than welcome to grab one of those sheets that have all of the answers on it before you head out the door. But it's dangerous and it's scary. And we have the world at our fingertips. What about this? How many calculators do you have on your phone? One. Anybody have 2 calculators on your phone? Okay, so if you had 2 calculators on your phone, it's a discrete icon. It's called Calculator Plus, which you open it up, you type in a certain password, and then you can hide pictures behind it. And so if you start snooping and you start looking and you start seeing where your kid has 2 calculators on their phone, start paying attention. Now, that's not the only ghost app that's out there. There's a lot of other apps as well, okay? But educate yourself, because you can even be a parent and say, man, I'm snooping and I'm not seeing anything. In fact, if you were to have an Android device, a lot of times you can even say, hey, I want to hide these apps, and they won't even show up on the front until you go in and you start searching the apps, you start typing something in, then you can start searching. And so there's a lot of ways to end up hiding. I learned this the other day. Let me mention this. Well, I'll mention this one here in a second. And so I've got a lot of stuff, okay? I learned a ton whenever I'm in schools talking to kids, and they're like, man, can you believe, like, you can do this? Okay, so I was in Estill County the other day talking to some students, and they were like, hey, here is my 13-year-old cousin driving a car. Her boyfriend is letting her drive a car. And I was like, can't do that. And so I was like, why don't you pull out, and they were like, it's on Snapchat. And I was like, why don't you pull out a cell phone, film that for me, and then you can send me that, right? And he said, why? And I was like, that way I can have it. He said, you can video everything that pops up on your screen. And I was like, what? And so did you know, like on the new iOS update, you can slide up and you can hit video screen, and whatever ends up popping up later, it ends up recording it, auto-recording it. Nobody has any idea, right? Absolutely crazy. If you've got a Samsung or an Android, you can go and on your Snapchat, you can even start screenshotting everything, and it'll screenshot it to a point nobody else has any idea. It doesn't send any kind of user, hey, your snap has been screenshot. So it's absolutely crazy what technology can do. So texting lingo. So on the next page that you've got, who doesn't have a copy of these? Raise your hand. All right, let me see how many I have. I'll pass some of these out. So y'all can share them, you can fight over them. If there's an extra one next to you, you're more than welcome. So how many of these did you know whenever you got here? Some of y'all are like, I know ASL because you just said it, right? All right, so here we go. Who knows at least one of these? All right, at least two of these, at least three of these, at least four of them. All right, at least five. Maybe you're lost. Now, this is not an all-encompassing list. This is just some that we've come across that we've finally figured out what they ended up meaning. So, let me get my study guide here. All right, so I mentioned this to one of the parents earlier. So there's going to be some things that we cover today that aren't necessarily designed for children, and I don't want to hold back on behalf of the rest of the crowd. So 9. I won't say what 8 is. You can pick up one of these and you can figure it out. 9 is parent watching. 9 parent gone. 143 I love you. 420. Who was at my last class? Who remembers what 420 is? What's 420? Marijuana. Thank you. Finally. Yeah. Everybody else was asleep. Okay. 53X. Anybody have an idea what that is? Sex. Like GNOC, get naked on cam. MOS, mom over shoulder. Hopefully we've got a lot of moms over the shoulder. All right. PAW, parents are watching. TDTM, talk dirty to me. All different kinds of things. And so before you leave, you can pick it up. It's got all of the answers on there, so you can take it. All right. And the other thing I'm going to encourage you to do is not just stick with this, but also to get online and start asking, like, what kind of acronyms, what kind of short things are teens using to start telling and talking, because it's out there. So, your online life. You have an online life, chances are. I have an online life, maybe except for this phone that you've got. And we don't have to worry about that one. But we have all different kinds of things. So there's some risky behaviors as well, and this applies to you, to me, and to our kids. Sending mean or rude messages, sharing inappropriate photos, talking about adult subjects, and visiting adult sites. So here's one of the things that we see a whole lot, all right? And this is called sexting. Now, sexting would be whenever you start taking an intimate photo and you start sending it to somebody else. Now, here's the deal. The average age of the pictures that we are investigating that are out there where someone is sexting is 12. The average age that we come across where people are sexting is age 12. All right, which means that there's all the high school years way later, and the average age is 12. And so keep that in the back of your mind. You see, a lot of times somebody says, hey, send me a picture, and they end up sending them. Middle school is one of the highest times that it is done. All right? So I want to show you a video. This video, man, it makes my stomach kind of cringe. I'm a dad. I've got 2 little girls. So take a look. End of story, right?
You forget? You know I'm sticking out.
For all things, should he show his friends? You no longer have a choice.
I heard it was 2 hands. Check this out. What up? Whoa! Oh man! Yo, send that to me real quick. I'm not gonna. Come on, send that to me.
Should he pass it on?
Man, you a Yo, you are full screen. Look at that, boys. Check that out, boys. I had to send this to Mark.
Send that out now.
There's mom. And that's not her daddy. See, think before you post. Unfortunately, that's the world that I live in. You see, we investigate crimes where someone sends out a picture and then somebody starts blackmailing them, somebody starts sharing their image, and before we know it, that picture that they thought they were sending to their boyfriend or their girlfriend that they shouldn't have sent in the beginning is now sent to the entire school. What do you think ends up happening then? Who would say like maybe some bullying? How do you think that person ends up feeling? How embarrassed, how scared, man, it's crazy. All off of one picture that shouldn't have been sent to begin with. You see a revealing image, it may get lost, misplaced, be passed around without your permission, be used to bully you, blackmail you, or get you into trouble. Man, you wouldn't believe the number of cases that we have where they send a picture, someone says, hey, send me a picture. And maybe it's not that bad yet. And they get the picture, they say, hey, send me this kind of picture. And they go, I don't want to send you that kind of picture. And the person on the other end goes, send me that picture or I'm going to send this picture to your school. What ends up happening then? You see, the end of it never ends up coming. It's called sextortion. Don't take images of yourself that you wouldn't want everyone to see. Don't forward anyone else's image. Don't ask or pressure anyone to share an image. Talk to an adult and stay in control. So here's what this looks like. Who has girls? You're a mom of girls. Okay, raise your hand. Yeah, so I've got 2. This is what this ends up looking like. And all too often, man, law enforcement, we deal with it all the time. A lot of times, recently there was a case where Electronic Crimes was contacted by a mom. Thankfully, it was a friend of the investigator, and basically called and said, hey, I need you to come over here. My daughter, there's someone that she sent pictures to, and so they end up going over. So basically, this 12-year-old girl sent basically a topless picture, and then the person gets it. And they send back, they're like, hey, send me this kind of a picture. And she's like, I don't want to send you that kind of picture. Send me that or I'm going to send this to your family. So she sends it. And then it turned into, hey, send me videos. If you don't send me videos, I'm going to release these pictures to your school. And then they were like, oh my gosh. And so the little girl started sending videos. And then they said, come meet me in person or I'm going to send the videos out. And finally, that 12-year-old little girl finally said, Mom, I have messed up. And it happens. And it can happen. It happens all too often. And this, unfortunately, is what it looks like.
Hi, Zach. Here's another video from my special guy. I can't believe we haven't talked all day. I wish you went to my school or a little closer so we could finally meet.
Hey, kiddo. Dinner in an hour. Don't spend too long on the phone.
Okay, I know you've been waiting for this for a while. I wanted to give you something special. Is this okay?
Who are you? Why are you doing this?
Anybody notice any changes? Yes, you see a lot of times what we end up seeing is someone that is sending pictures and they're being sextorted. Man, they start changing. The way that they look, the way that they start acting, the way that they just feel scared, the way they feel isolated, spending all their time to themselves. Man, pay attention. You see, oftentimes someone can send something because they trust the person on the other end without ever knowing the long-term consequences and unintended consequences that could come from sending one picture. And that's all that it takes. I want to change gears just a little bit, and I want to talk about cyberbullying. You see, whenever I was a kid, and whenever bullying happened, it was completely different than it is today. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. And basically, I just want to set the stage. Bullying is the intentional tormenting in physical, verbal, or psychological ways. It can range from hitting, shoving, name-calling, threats, and mocking to extorting money and treasured possessions. Some kids bully by shunning others and spreading rumors about them. You see, cyberbullying is a thing, and it's a real thing. In fact, cyberbullying is one of the leading causes when we start looking at teen suicide. A lot of times it happens because of cyberbullying. You see, whenever I was a kid, we had this saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Do words hurt? Yes. Words, while it may not have physical scars, it can leave emotional scars that can last a very, very long time. So cyberbullying could be creating a hate group about someone, posting mean comments online, photoshopping someone's photo to embarrass them, recording and posting fight videos, spreading rumors and gossip through text messages, or stealing someone's identity to create a fake profile. Man, it's scary how oftentimes it ends up happening. Anybody have a piece of paper? Blank, clean sheet of paper? Yeah, can you open it up for me? All right. Let me get a volunteer. Can one of y'all come up here? Okay. Yeah, round of applause. Y'all don't even know what she's doing yet. What's your name?
Anna.
I'm Robert. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Do you know what bullying is?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal. I want you to hold the microphone because I can't do all three things at one time, okay? So, you hold this. What do you notice about this paper?
It's blank.
It's blank. What's anything else?
There's lines on it.
Okay, pretty clean piece of paper though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to bully me. I want you to say something really mean about me. Go.
What do you mean?
See, she's not a bully.
Say something mean about me.
Say his hair's funny.
Your hair is short.
My hair's short. Thank you. I cut it that way because whenever I wear my campaign hat, it ends up working out better, okay? Really say something mean. Let's go. Come on.
I can't.
You're not going to hurt my feelings. You're not.
I don't have anything mean to say.
Say I'm short.
You're short.
I'm short. Ask me if I've been eating donuts.
Have you been eating donuts?
Have I been eating donuts? No, I haven't been eating donuts. What does it look like I've been eating donuts? Okay, what else?
I don't know.
Okay. So she calls me a pig, right? She's like, you lowlife, you shouldn't be out there. What are you wearing your daddy's uniform? I can't believe you must have been a bully, right? It's all kinds of things, right? You're a horrible bully. Go sit down, okay? Give her a round of applause. Okay. That did not work out in my favor. Oh, well. I'm going to be like a magician next time, and I'm going to vet the audience before we ever show up. But here's the deal. Whenever someone starts saying something about somebody else, it's like taking that piece of paper and crumbling up. And oftentimes what we end up saying afterwards is what? I'm sorry, right? Would you forgive me? Right? We're like, I'm sorry, how can I make it better? And it's like trying to straighten this piece of paper out. Now, it doesn't matter how many times you say you're sorry. It doesn't matter what you end up doing. The wrinkles on this paper will always be there. There's going to be no way that I can get all the wrinkles out. You see, whenever we start saying things about people, man, words hurt and words matter. And that's something to remember, especially whenever we start getting online. You see, I would wonder how many of us end up creating and showing a very good example to our teens about how well we are online, right? The election just ended. Anybody say anything mean online during the election? Yeah, right? And so I just would caution you, man, I know a ton of cyber bullies, and they're not all kids. And a lot of times the cyberbullies that I know, they're also parents, and they are some keyboard warriors, and they were going to say whatever they want to say. It doesn't matter whose feelings they end up hurting. And that's the world that we live in. And unfortunately, we keep passing it on to our kids. And then we go, why is there bullying in my school? Take a look around, okay? So posting mean comments, all of these are different kind of ways that bullying ends up happening. Now, bullying can have some horrible, horrible results. Maybe your kid is being bullied, or maybe your child is the bully. It doesn't matter. Either way, it is going to have an effect on both parties. Because sometimes somebody may do something as a result of bullying, and there's going to be nothing that you can do now about what you said and being able to say, I'm sorry.
Florida has arrested 2 girls ages 12 and 14.
Where'd my...
A sheriff in Florida has arrested 2 girls ages 12 and 14 on felony charges of aggravated stalking in a case of cyberbullying. A 12-year-old classmate jumped to her death a month ago, and Anna Werner has more.
Police say Rebecca Sedgwick was relentlessly tormented by 2 classmates for a year. The arrests were made after the 14-year-old suspect boasted on the internet about the bullying. Sheriff Grady Judd.
She made a comment in reference to, yeah, I bullied Rebecca, and yeah, she's dead, but I don't give a blank. We saw that and we thought, that's over the top.
The 14-year-old and her 12-year-old accomplice allegedly harassed Sedgwick at school, then followed her online. Taunts included, you should drink bleach and die, no one likes you, and you should go kill yourself. Sedgwick jumped off a tower near her home after writing friends, I am jumping, I can't take it anymore. We spoke to her mother, Tricia Norman, last month.
I want them to pay for it because they took my baby away. They took her confidence away. They took her self-worth away. And now she's gone from me.
The sheriff hasn't ruled out charging the suspect's parents.
If you can't supervise your child, if they don't behave, then take away their devices. Don't allow them to have Facebook.
So who do you blame more here, the girls or their parents?
I blame them both equally. This incident goes way back until 2012, back in November and December, with fights, with intimidating, with terrorizing Rebecca Sedgwick. So the defendant's parents knew she was bullying.
The 2 suspects are now under house arrest. Scott, if convicted, the sheriff says it's unlikely they would face jail time because this would be their first offense.
Anna, thank you.
Man, could the parents stopped it? I think so. By paying attention, by keeping a phone maybe in a common area of the house, by watching, by checking passwords, by seeing what kind of statements are being made. Man, it would have been very easy for a parent to say, listen, can't say that. You can't do that, and have a very teachable moment at that very moment, but it didn't end up happening that way. You see, oftentimes cyberbullied teens, they may have low self-esteem, feel lonely, feel nervous about going to school, and words matter. You see, whenever someone was being bullied 20 years ago and they didn't have this cell phone, they would go to school, they'd get picked on, they'd get bullied, and then they'd go home, and what was at home? Their bully? No. And so they were able to leave the bully behind, but unfortunately in technology, the way that it ends up working, that's not the way that it happens anymore. You see, more times kids are being bullied on social media and through text messaging and apps than they are being face-to-face bullied. And it's dangerous because they can never get away from it. It follows them every single place that they go. Don't feed cyberbullies. This is what I try to teach kids, is keep critical comments to yourself. Don't forward rumors or embarrassing photos. Don't comment on insulting or harassing posts, and treat others with respect. Recently there was a study that was done by NoBully.com that said 53% of kids say that they have said hurtful things to another person online. 33 of these kids have done it more than once. Over 50% of teens have been cyberbullied, but only 28% have been bullied either physically or vocally. And so where is it happening? And it's happening online. There's a couple different forms of cyberbullying, and we're going to start wrapping up. Flaming, which would be using inappropriate or vulgar language to attack or fight with someone. Harassing, which is repeatedly sending inappropriate, hurtful, or hateful messages. Outing, which would be sharing the secrets of personal information in a public forum. Exclusion, which would be intentionally and publicly excluding someone from a group and tormenting them after exclusion. You see, a lot of times, man, our kids, just like us, we want to be what? We want to be around people. We want to be liked. And so you stick them out and you start making fun of them for why aren't you hanging out. Impersonation, posing as someone for the purpose of damaging their reputation, inviting an attack, or sharing real or fabricated information about them. Stalking, electronically following someone and sending them targeted messages with the intention of scaring, harming, or intimidating them. Now, I'm not going to watch this video necessarily today. I want you to see it. Has anybody ever watched the Amanda Todd video? Who hasn't seen the Amanda Todd video? Okay, I'm going to change my tune then, okay? I want you to watch this because the things that we could do online on this, man, I've said it over and over and over and over, man, they matter. And the reason that it matters, you see, I have been at Post and I've been sitting there in my office and Post gets a phone call and we start responding to someone that we have an attempted suicide complaint with a middle school student. And so I pick up the phone because I get a phone call that comes in and Post says, hey, you've got a phone call on this line. And I pick up the phone and I start talking to them. And I pick it up and I say, hey, this is Trooper Purdy. How can I help you? And the voice on the other end of the phone isn't for me. It says, hey, this is a little girl that was trying to commit suicide. I said, what's going on? And she said, I've been bullied at school. And this and that. And I've taken this many pills and I just don't want it to keep going on. You see, the decisions that someone can make as a result of cyberbullying can have long-term horrible effects. Words matter.
There's no one in town, I know. You gave us some place to go. I never said thank you for that. I thought I might get one more chance. What would you think of me now? So lucky, so strong, so proud. I never said thank you for that. Now I never have a chance. May angels lead you in. Here you meet my friends. On sleepless roads, the sleepless go. May angels lead you in. So what would you think of me now? So lucky, so strong, so proud. I never said thank you for that. Now I'll never have a chance. May angels lead you in. Here you meet my friends. On sleepless roads, the sleepless go. May angels lead you in. May angels lead you in.
You see, one picture she ended up sending took her down this path. Man, she was being bullied, and she turned to what? Alcohol, and she turned to drugs as a coping mechanism. What you don't see is later on, she got into, at another school, she got into a fight with somebody, and she went and she laid in the ditch, and she was like, man, I just wanted to die. And then she went home and she drank bleach. And her dad found her. She goes back to school, and all the kids, they started saying, try a different bleach next time. But Amanda Todd, you see, after that failed attempt, she ended up committing suicide. She was a 17-year-old girl. There's a family that is living with the results of what ended up happening because of sending one picture to one person that thought that this is completely innocent, and that person was able to find out just about everything about her and followed her and tortured her. Unintended consequences. You see, create a positive online environment. Be careful what you share. Don't cyberbully or encourage it. Don't request inappropriate content, and as always, report. You see, if you come across something, you're like, man, this is something that needs to be told, contact law enforcement. Tell somebody. Tell your kids, listen, I don't care. Maybe you're going to make some mistakes. I know I've made mistakes. You've made mistakes. You can say, listen, you may make mistakes, but you need to come and you have to be able to be like, I messed up. And parents, be ready for it. A couple other safety things, and I've got one last little video that I want to watch. You see, a lot of times whenever we start looking at Facebook, we start looking at Instagram, and we start uploading pictures, let's just put it this way. Whenever you go on vacation, what do? You take pictures or no pictures? Who takes pictures when you go on vacation? Yeah, all of us, right? We're like, wow, look at the beach, right? And then what do we do with those pictures? Where do we put them? Online. When do you put them online? Huh? While you're there, you're like laying on the beach, you're like, man, this is awesome. I am chilling out. Ain't nobody at my home. Would anybody like to go break in? Y'all laugh. This one's for you, parents, all right? If you go on vacation and you ain't around, don't be putting your pictures online. Because all you're doing is you're telling your friends of friends, maybe someone is a friend of you, and they're a friend of yours. And so because you're a friend of a friend, you've got your pictures open up so a friend of a friend can end up seeing them. And somebody else scrolls through and they're like, hey, look, Robert's on vacation. He ain't home. I don't have to be in a rush. All right? The other thing, the Diet LA got me. The other thing, oftentimes when we take pictures, the GPS coordinates are embedded in that picture. And so if you were to take a picture at your house and you put it online, now someone pulls up that picture, they run it through, they're able to see what? They get to see where you live, right? Or even this one. Anybody got Cepacol? I'm just kidding. If you're at my last presentation. So your GPS coordinates are attached to the phone. Oftentimes on social media, if you start uploading from Instagram, if you don't have the location settings turned off, somebody can end up seeing where all of your posts were uploaded from. Case in point, the state police, the person that handles all of our social media, was at basically was uploading pictures, and I called her one day. I clicked on this link on the Instagram page, and I didn't know necessarily what it was. And all of a sudden, it showed me where all of the pictures had been uploaded from. And then I called her and I said, "Hey, do you live at such and such lane?" And she was like, "Yeah." And she was like, I'm like, "How did you know that?" And I was like, "Have you ever been to your house?" And she's like, "No." I was like, "Have you ever told me your address?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "How'd you know?" I was like, "Well, all I did was I went to the Kentucky State Police Instagram page and I clicked the location where all these have been uploaded from, and it showed me exactly where you live." And she was like, "Oh, ma'am," right? And so be careful. Oftentimes things are out there. I've got a little sister. I've got a bunch of little sisters, and they take pictures of my daughters at my house, and it scares me because they put them out there for what? Anybody else to see. And oftentimes, if it's on Snapchat, it can even show the location that those were being uploaded from. So be careful and be cautious about that information that you voluntarily put out. Because chances are, most of the time, you wouldn't put out your phone number and your information. Sometimes you will. I was scrolling through my feed recently, and as I was going through, I pulled up one where someone that works for the state police, his thing, and I saw somebody's comment underneath, and they said, "Hey, Josh, it's been a long time since we've talked. Why don't you give me a call or swing by the house? Here's my address." True story, right? And so I saw that, and I was like, huh. I know lots of kids that do that. I don't know a lot of adults that do this, so I'm gonna do this. And so I got up my phone, and I dialed the number, and I was like, "Hello, Dr. So-and-so." He was a doctor in Lexington. "Hello, Dr. So-and-so. How are you?" And he said, "Good." I said, "Hey, this is Robert Purdue, the state police." He was like, "Who?" And I said, "Have you ever met me?" And he said, "No." And I said, "But you live at such and such is your address, and this is your phone." And he was like, "How do you have my information?" I was like, "We have friends in common, and you posted it on his thing." I said, if I have it, chances are somebody else could have it. So why don't you go ahead and delete that and not put your information online anymore? And he's like, thanks. All right? And so we do it, man. We put things out there voluntarily without understanding. But I'm telling you, being on the other end of the line, being on the law enforcement side that has to go work all these burglaries and robberies and things like that, man, be cautious about what you put online. So I want to close with this last video. And this is going to kind of completely wrap it all together in a nice big basket. And honestly, this is why it's important. Because your kids, man, what do your kids mean to you? They mean the world. And this world wouldn't be the same without them. So take a look.
Daniel had really been bullied most of his school career. When he hit high school, it exploded. He didn't fit in with a lot of the crowds. He wasn't into sports. He was into hunting and trapping, which not a lot of kids his age are into. So he had a hard time finding kids who had common interests with him. So that made him a target a lot of the time. It started out with words. He was called just horrible names. It progressed to having trash thrown at him. He was punched in the stomach. He was made to lick a bus window. He was jumped from behind walking to the buses. He was ridiculed for the music he listened to. You name it. They looked for any little thing just to make his life miserable. When he was jumped walking to the bus, the boy told him the night before that he was going to do it. He said to him in a text, "Why? I know you don't like me. That's why I don't come near you. I don't have any interactions with you. I respect that. Why can't you respect me? What have I done to you?" His response was, "Because you're a pussy and you need your ass kicked." It makes no sense to me even today. One of the kids that Daniel had a lot of issues with had texted him. I saw the text myself. And it said, "Why don't you take one of your precious guns and do the world a favor, go kill yourself?" He texted that same kid and he said, "You won't have to worry about me anymore. I'm going to go home and kill myself." And the kid came back with, "Put up or shut up." That day, he told people in lunch, he had told people in his classroom, told a number of people on the bus that he was going to kill himself. Those were his words, "I'm going home and I'm going to kill myself." And the bus driver said, "I'll see you tomorrow, Dan." He told the bus driver, "You won't see me tomorrow." The one person he knew that would do something was the last person he texted and the last person he called, his hunting friend Matt. He knew Matt would try to call us, and he said to Matt, "Please don't call my mom. My mom will take me to the hospital." He was trying to keep Daniel on the phone, get his sister's attention. He was writing her notes and having her call their father, who's a friend of my husband's. And we missed the call. We missed the call. We came out of Michael's basketball game, and my husband Rob said, "I missed a call from Cal. I'll call him when I get home." Next thing happened, literally within a minute of saying that, so our other friend Wally calls. Now, guys don't talk to each other all the time. And Rob runs to the van, and he said, "Daniel's talking suicide." I called my next door neighbor, and I begged her to go over and check on him. And she walked in the door and she yelled, "Daniel." And she thought she heard him say something, and she shouted out, "We love you." And then she heard the shotgun blast. And I ran to his room, and the sight that I saw was horrific. It was horrific. And I remember hearing myself screaming, but I couldn't feel it. And running back outside. And I could hear Michael screaming, "I want my brother back." And every EMT that showed up, I begged him, Please just find a pulse. I'll take him any way that I can have him. No, there was none. I've played a million scenarios over in my head what I would do if I was there 30 minutes earlier. Knowing what I know now, I would just wrap him in my arms and just beg him and tell him how much he means to so many people. Because so many people have talked to us since he died. They've sent us letters. I received letters from kids his age. I just wish he knew how much he meant to so many people. He did matter. He does matter. His book bag with his books, still right on the bench where he left it that day. We will never recover from this. Never.
You see, every single person matters. And your kids, they matter. And your kids, they need you. Oftentimes, man, we see it so many times where they just get in over their head and they think, man, there's no way out. You see, I want to put this up here and I'm going to close. I just want to say, man, warning signs of suicide, because unfortunately this being cyberbullied is one of the #1 reasons that kids finally say, man, I'm going to end it all. Showing signs of depression or ongoing sadness, withdrawal from others, losing interest in favorite activities, or trouble sleeping or eating. Talking about or showing an interest in death or dying, engaging in dangerous or harmful activities, including reckless behavior, substance abuse, or self-injury. Giving away favorite possessions and saying goodbye to people. Saying or expressing that they can't handle things anymore, or making comments that things would be better without them. To reiterate what Judge Neal said, man, if you're a parent and you're not snooping, you're a bad parent. Because how could this have been different if another parent that had access to one of those other people's phones could have seen it and said, hey, this isn't okay, or if this mom would have found it before any of this have ever happened. Man, pay attention. Because every single person, man, they matter, especially when they're your son or your daughter. You see, things that happen online, man, it can have long-term consequences and horrific results, but it doesn't have to be. You see, online, there's a lot of great tools that can be used. People can connect, people can tell positive stories, people can make a difference and make this world a better place. And whenever social media is used for those kind of applications, man, it's great. But unfortunately, sometimes, and so few, sometimes just use it in such a way to tear people down and wreak havoc. So with that, I'm going to open it up. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything. I know we covered a bunch and we went from like gamut to gamut. And so with that, anybody have any questions? Yeah.
My son loves Fortnite. Is there anything that's like hidden in Fortnite? I think it's a stupid game altogether. I mean, you shoot people and you do like a little dance and stuff. I'm like, I don't know why we're celebrating. You're killing people, but yeah, that kind of stuff in Roblox. I mean,
yeah.
Roblox has a chat thing. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Yeah, a lot of times if they're talking to somebody online, so someone there's a lot of, okay, how about this? Any kind of application where kids are at, online predators are at too, okay? And so all they have to do is go online and start having a conversation and find those that they're going to be able to continue to have that conversation with. Maybe they move them from Minecraft or from Roblox or from whatever they were playing over into a completely different application to where they start being friends with them in hopes of enticing them to leave or enticing them to start sending something, and so they're dangerous. If they're talking to people online that they don't know, the possibility and the potential for it to be abused and somebody to take advantage of them starts going up tremendously. I think that it was a couple years ago, someone was playing Minecraft. They lived in New York, playing with somebody that lived in Texas. The person who lived in Texas was stopped in New York a couple days after they played with rope, duct tape, a knife, and a couple other things, like on their way to that boy's house, okay? And so anytime that anybody is online and they talk with other people that they don't know, the danger exists. And so, yeah, and so do. So if they're doing it and they're not talking to anybody, they're not communicating with anybody, it's completely different. And so pay attention because stuff can happen, yeah.
And then Family Link is a great app that you can have on your phone that you can see what's going on their phone. So you can see their location, and I don't know if you've talked about that, but there is one that you can have like connected. I have it connected to my son.
Yeah, so there's a lot of there's a lot of apps for you to monitor. At the end of the day, you probably pay the phone bill, and so it is your phone. All right. So having access to different kind of passwords, it's there to protect them, to help them. There's a lot of apps that say, hey, here's where my child is at, especially when they start driving. There are other apps that are going to be able to send you maybe an update if they're driving too fast, if they have too many people in the car. There's a lot of apps that are out there, but paying attention and find an app that is going to work for you and your family. Anything else? Cool. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. My information's on the screen. And here's my sales pitch. If you've got your phone and you're on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, you can follow me at TPRPURDY and hopefully continue to help us share a positive message with the community that we're able to serve. So y'all take care and be safe.
I want to thank Officer Purdy again for that wonderful presentation and for all of you being here tonight who have a vested interest in our community. Tonight I just want to encourage us, what do we really do with this information? The reality is that we've been presented with a tremendous amount of information to help us become more aware of the dangers of social media, cyberbullying, and all of the things that are associated with those platforms. The reality is that we have many young people and old people, seasoned people, who are in these environments, some meaning to do well and some meaning to do great harm. And so as we are understanding about social media, and given that I'm a computer science person by trade, by training and education, social media was developed for us to be more social. However, what we're learning is that social media is an opportunity for people to develop an identity, not of who they are, but oftentimes who they want to be or wish to be, or the realities of who they are come out without any other ramifications to the greater community. And so what does that really mean for us? One of the things that I've really understood about social media, and I like what Officer Purdy said, that as he quoted the judge, he said that, you know, if you're not really watching what your children or your family members are doing on social media, you're really irresponsible. And, you know, I find some truth in that, because I know as a parent with two boys myself, it was very painful to learn that my son, my youngest son, was stalked by an online predator. If it had not have been for a wife, a mother, who had done her due diligence to find out and to get passwords and to understand this online footprint, that could have been our home and our child that we would be talking about. And so these realities hit home, and as a person who talks to many people in our community, I know I could relate to some of the young ladies who had committed suicide. I can relate to even those who I counseled and have walked with families who have literally had to move out of a community because of one picture. I'm very thankful that it didn't result in any kind of traumatic experience in terms of losing of life, but it resulted in depression, it resulted in anxiety, it resulted in low self-esteem. And so I want to encourage us to really do something, to go back to your homes, to go back to your places of influence, and build the necessary relationships to understand what really goes on in the social media world. I'm realizing that the more social media begins to take hold in our community and takes hold in our culture, we must become more engaging. And what I mean by that is that we've got to build relationships internally. We've got to begin to understand that all of us are living in this community together and we all can make a difference. And so I encourage parents, have conversations with your children. No longer can we get so busy with life and providing for our families that we don't have meaningful conversation. Social media never shuts down. Social media is ongoing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so in order for us to really combat the issues of social media, we've got to become more engaging with one another. We cannot allow television to babysit. We can't allow online games to babysit. We cannot allow all these reality televisions to babysit anymore. We've really got to become more engaging and build relationships internally with one another and our families and our children. And so I'm challenging us that as a result of what we've seen tonight, to go home, carve out time, make boundaries for your family, your children, that can protect and safeguard against some of the nuances of social media. And it's going to take every one of us. We, as I said last time we met, we live in a community where we must come together. It's no longer just you do what you do in your home and it doesn't affect anyone else. No, we affect each other. And so I'm encouraging you, mothers, fathers, talk to your children. Find out the social media account that they see, that you see. Find out the one that you don't see, because many of them have 2 social media accounts for the same platform. So if they've got an Instagram that you see, there might be an Instagram that you don't see. And that's real. And understanding that, listen, we're all in this thing together. So I'm encouraging you, when you leave here today, make time to engage and have meaningful conversation. Spend time telling your children how much you love them. Give them a healthy identity to combat cyberbullying and some of the things that they may hear at school, because that is very real. And if we don't impress upon them an identity of positive encouragement, of healthy self-esteem and awareness and positive identity, then someone else is going to put something else on them. And so I'm just encouraging us, and just ask yourself the question, whose identity do you want your children to reflect? Is it that you put on them or project to them? Or that social media and their environment in school and peers put on them? And that's our responsibility. This is a very real issue. I want to thank again the Danger in Plain Sight committee and team for the opportunity, but I also want to allow us to take away the challenge to make a difference at home. Again, it's meaningful relationships, engagement with your families, having conversations, but also letting them know how much we care. Children want to know how much you care. I don't care how old they are, and for some of you, they can be 30 years old, they're still your babies. We've got to let our young people know how much we care. Thank you all tonight.
We're at Dr. Sweet. She's going to come up and say a few words.
I promise just a little bit. I know everybody's tired. I do want to say one thing. I'm glad to be in a room full of people, and no offense to the politicians in the room, but gosh, I'm so glad that I don't have to hear any more campaign stuff on social media, text, all that kind of stuff. So I'll probably not need this, but I do want to say a couple of things, and I'm going to disagree with Officer Kirby and Judge Neal on you need to snoop. What was your quote?
If you're a parent and you're not snooping, you're a bad parent.
If you're a parent and you're not snooping, you're a bad parent. So I'm going to disagree a little bit on that. So just so y'all know, I'm a doctor, psychiatrist, and addiction specialist by training. Anybody in here know, so I do addiction work, anybody in here know why I drug test? Come on. Does anybody know why I test my patients for drugs? Why would I test? Somebody's got to break down through. Because they want. Usually, from everybody I hear, to catch them. Nope. That's what'd you say? Accountability. I'm not drug testing people to catch them doing something wrong. I want to let them know up front I'm going to be looking to keep them from doing what they're going to do wrong. So when I say I disagree a little bit, one of the things I'd say is you set up boundaries up front and say, I'm going to be looking. That's not snooping. You're saying, I'm going to do what I've said I'm going to do. And you better not be doing it. Now, he's right. They're smart. They can figure out ways I can't figure out. You know what I mean? There's no doubt in my mind. But when I talk to parents, I talk about you should set these rules up. They're not going to like them, right? Especially teenagers. But if you set those rules up and they know there's a possibility you're going to be looking, that's going to help kind of not send those pictures. The other thing I would say is, and so that's all about accountability. We kind of do that with lots of things, weight loss, you're going to get weight, so you act a little bit better. If they just drop the weight on you for nothing, then, oh yeah, you gained 10 pounds. You don't really stop any behaviors. So I will say that. And so another thing to say is, I think as parents, you should be, and grandparents, you should make yourself aware of these. There's going to be lots of platforms you have no idea about. There's going to be other Facebook profiles. Well, they don't do Facebook anymore. There's going to be other profiles that you don't know about. But you need to let them know that you know something, that you are a little bit more savvy with this than they think you are. And it also gives you a way to talk to your children, as Officer Purdy was talking about. If you have an online account, that gives you an opportunity to have a conversation with your child about that. Like, oh, I saw this picture on Twitter and it was this, and get in a conversation so they feel a little bit more comfortable talking about that. So then you can say, oh, have you been on X and such platform today? Who did you talk to? Oh, Chris. Well, I didn't know you had a Chris in your classroom. Who's that? Oh, you've never met Chris. So that does not appear to be snooping to your child. It's just opening up these kind of conversations, but it helps you gather information. I will say this, we all have, and I know I've just got a short period of time, but I will say, when I talk about drug lectures and medicine lectures, start before you think it's a problem. I actually was shocked about the 12-year-old average that he was talking about. I mean, that's amazing. One of the things that we do when we're at home is we'll pass down our phone. And even though they don't have minutes on it or anything, kids playing with a phone, anytime you give a child a phone or an iPad or have them on the computer, that's when you need to start talking about what's appropriate behavior online and what's not. Not when they're 10. If you hand them a phone when they're 6, you don't say don't sext because they hopefully don't know what that is yet. But you say something appropriate like, don't ever send pictures to anybody you don't know. This, it's a teaching moment. Don't ever, pictures of parts that, you're never supposed to send people who ask you for pictures. You should never send anybody any pictures. You start at that age. Of course, as they get older, you start talking more about the details of what they shouldn't be doing. But that helps you lay that ground rule. We were talking about it a little bit, Roblox, Minecraft. I didn't know Minecraft had an online function. You know how I knew Minecraft had an online function? I had the computer and the laptop in the middle of my living room floor. Not floor, but put a little table in there. Not because, I'm not going to let them go in the room and do that. I walk by and I see something on Minecraft. I thought it was this talking back and forth that appeared. That's how I knew, oh, there's something I need to go turn off. My child shouldn't be on something where somebody else can talk to them. And so that's another safety feature when we're talking about media, is put it in a common space, especially for the little bitty ones. And I will say, as they get older, you probably need to be checking a whole lot more. But the little ones are the ones that you need to start early. These are the things that you do, these are the things that you don't do, these are the things we watch for. Mommy's always going to be watching, Daddy's going to be watching, and anything you do when they get into their tween age, as he's talking about earlier, it's like a tattoo. Don't get it unless you want to live with it for the rest of your life. And unfortunately, there's not awesome dermatologists when it comes to the pictures and stuff online. We've seen that, recently, stuff drug up from long ago coming back to haunt people. And so that's one of the things to talk about, especially with your teenagers. And another thing, growing up in the era I did, we were always bad about body image, because I see that a lot with girls. You'll see that on these videos, body image, right? Everybody's fabulous, everybody's life's fabulous, everybody's rolling in money, drinking champagne, everything's wonderful and your life's horrible. Well, when it comes to men, I see a lot more men with body image issues, a lot of young girls. When I was growing up, there were pictures on magazines that they kind of airbrushed, right? They airbrushed them and you thought, well, this is unrealistic. Nowadays, there's people who completely morph their bodies and put that online like it's normal and fine. And reality stars are the best at it. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Reality TV stars, they take all these pictures and that duck face and all that stuff that they do, and they will take and squeeze their waist in and make everything else curve this way, no blemish on their face, and act like that's everyday life. Well, one of the things I recommend people do, especially with girls and boys, is to go on, because reality stars often, there's another picture of them somewhere, is to show them those differences. So she'll show the pictures that they're putting to the world where their waist is about a 22-inch waist, and then it shows a picture of them from the Inquirer where they got like a 40-inch waist. I think that's important to talk about, to show. Or the guy who's got the six-pack abs. Have you ever seen those pictures? but they're not quite right, and then they'll show a picture of them at the beach, and it's not that. To talk to them, these pictures are not real life. You don't hold yourself up to that, because I see a lot of when it comes to social media, I see a lot of self-esteem issues related to those kind of unattainable things that they put themselves up to. And I will say, if you have the internet, go online and look. You'll see what I'm talking about. People, there's no way, and they doctor every picture, and it takes them half hour to doctor it, and it looks perfect. And that's really not what they look like in real life. And we don't want our children thinking that's what they're supposed to look like in real life. So that's all I have to say. I know there's just a couple of seconds, but I just want to say, I recommend tell them you're going to snoop. You're going to be looking at their stuff, get their passwords, all that stuff. That way they maybe won't do some of the stuff like the bullying and that kind of stuff that they don't want their grandparents or their parents or anybody else to look in on them with. So that's my recommendations. Sorry, I disagree with you, Officer.